The Wednesday meeting of the WAPA Board of Directors featured discussion on several challenges facing the utility company. One of the most pressing challenges is the question of where to source propane, given VITOL's decision to suspend deliveries to the Water and Power Authority.
The new lease, we would be locked into 12 months, and at the end of the 12th month, we can pay an exit fee and get out of the lease. And that exit fee would decline each month as we went through months 13 through 24. And so we talk a little bit about the benefits and the cost of the new lease. The benefit is it provides us significant flexibility in our options to move away from leased generation. As the board and the listening audience knows, we've been talking about wanting to own assets rather than lease assets. There are two pieces to the Aggreko lease. One is a monthly capacity charge. The other is a $1 per kilowatt hour operation and maintenance charge, or sometimes called an energy charge. In the new lease, the $1 per kilowatt hour operation and maintenance or energy charge rate at 0.0105 cents a kilowatt hour is unchanged. As part of the new lease, the generators are due for a 30,000 hour overhaul. Aggreko will perform those overhauls on island. So that will be done here in the relatively near term. And as I mentioned, there's an exit option in the lease. The maximum cost of exiting the lease is $656,000, which represents about 8% of the annual lease cost. Now, we don't like paying an exit fee, but when we look at owning assets versus leasing assets, the break even between avoiding the lease cost and then ultimately owning the assets, if we're not able to secure third-party funding for the purchase, the break even is still somewhere in the 12 to 16 month range. So we would make that one payment, but then we would be in a much better financial position after that. The other two, downsides of the new lease is Aggreko was seeking a 20% increase in the capacity cost in the lease. We were able to negotiate that down to a 10% increase in year one and a 5% increase in year two.
WAPA CEO Andrew Smith asked the board for approval to temporarily purchase the needed propane from an alternative supplier, a request to which the board agreed. WAPA was given permission to purchase up to $500,000 worth of propane a day from a pool of 4 suppliers.
So if we think about that, to kind of put it in a monthly component, with an estimated energy charge, because that will vary with the production off the assets, we currently pay just under $650,000 a month for the Aggreko lease. That will increase to approximately $700,000 in the new lease in the first year. The change in the second year, as I mentioned, is an increase of $26,000. With the exit fee in the lease, I mentioned it's $656,000 at the end of the 12th month. That decreases by approximately $55,000 a month. So, for example, if we get halfway through the second year, the exit cost would be about $325,000.
That authorization will expire on January 6, 2023. Meanwhile, the board also mulled over the requested 2-year extension of a lease with Aggreko LLC. The proposed terms represent a departure from the expiring lease, and Smith explained the pros and cons.
Aggreko did propose a solution. That solution entailed installing a relatively small battery, because you'd only need literally like a second of support to be able to keep the unit stable. But the battery could provide that. I was very clear, and the team was very clear to Aggreko, that we did not intend to pay for that. Aggreko then responded that they wanted us to pay $300,000 a month more for them to put a battery in place to solve the stability problem. We've refused to do that, and so we don't like the stability problem, but to pay $300,000 a month to address that, to me, was just it made no sense. And so we're going to look to solve this problem as quickly as we can by just getting alternate generation.
The new contract will result in a 10% increase in capacity charges in the first year, or an extra $52,000 per month. In the second year, WAPA would pay half of that sum, which would still be an extra $26,000 monthly over the current expiring contract.
propane, just to put the relative fuels in context, propane is meaningfully less expensive than diesel. Diesel is roughly twice the cost of propane on an energy equivalent basis. The other impact on us of propane versus diesel is that the Aggrekos, which we just renewed the lease, as well as the Wärtsiläs that we own outright on St. Thomas, both operate only on propane and are our most efficient units. So when we operate on diesel, we're taking our efficiency degrades. So effectively, our miles per gallon, if we were driving a car, gets worse. So there's really a dual effect to not having propane supply.
The board ultimately approved the 2-year Aggreko lease extension with 2 conditions. Firstly, that the monthly capacity charge be limited to a maximum of $28.67 per kilowatt month in year 1 and $27.36 in the second year. Secondly, the board wanted WAPA to be able to exit the lease after month 12 with an exit payment of just over $656,000, with the required payment decreasing by approximately $55,000 each month between months 13 and 24. Despite the approval of the lease extension, Smith acknowledged that there was a stability issue affecting the Aggreko machines, compounded in part by voltage fluctuations.
We're asking for what I've termed the equivalent of $500,000 per day. And let me explain why I'm asking for that, is that we currently today prepay for our propane every day. So we send a wire transfer every day and we get fuel in exchange for it. That's because that fuel sits in inventory in tanks on both St. Thomas and St. Croix. An alternate supplier may require us to purchase the entire cargo, right, while it's in transit and then being offloaded into the territory. And so all the equivalent of $500,000 a day is saying is that if we bought 7 days worth of supply, right, and that supply costs $3.5 million, that would be the equivalent of $500,000 a day. It's just to acknowledge that the way we would pay for it may be more lump sum as opposed to paying for it every day as we take it.